Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Ad Project Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Joe Schellerud from Ad Advance, and today I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Matt Wickland. So Matt, how's it going today?
Doing well, Joe.
I always have to ask that. I don't know why.
Yeah. I always feel on edge when you ask it too. Like, it's the easiest question in the world that I somehow don't know how to respond to.
Yep. Well, I'm doing good too, Matt. Thanks for asking.
I never asked that. Yeah.
Got my Ad Advance shirt on today. Life is good. So today for the episode, what we figured would be kind of fun to cover is CPCs have been going up quite a bit. So costs have really been increasing on the Amazon platform recently. Looking back, so we just did a post a little bit ago, and just focusing on like comparison from October from 2020 to 2021. If we break down the different ad types, sponsored products cost per click increased 26%. So our average was 96 cents. It went up to $1.21. Sponsored brands increased 21% per click from 87 cents to $1.05. And sponsored display went up at 55% overall, from 60 cents to 93 cents. So overall, we saw a major change, and we got some questions on the post too. Is, well, do we just include some of the time when we saw a really depressed market due to COVID and everything from 2020? So we looked at data all the way back to 2018, and it has just been this steady increase up. So between 2019 and 2020, we saw a 32% increase year over year. And then this last year, we've seen a major increase too. So overall costs are continuing to drive up for sponsored ads. So the key question is, I guess a couple quick key questions are like, why? So why do we expect that? And how do we react to it overall? So I guess I'll put it out there. What's your take on why costs are continuing to go up on Amazon?
Supply and demand. So Amazon hasn't increased the number of ad placements on their platform commensurate with the level of competition and inflow of new products, new advertisers, more established brands moving to the platform. So that demand for that inventory, all of those placements around Amazon, has outpaced the supply of available inventory, and that's driven pricing up over time. So as more and more sellers have flocked to Amazon, more brands have flocked to Amazon, it's just become much, much more competitive. As we know, sponsored ads, they're based on a second price model, and everything's competitively bid. So the more people you have in a marketplace vying for that ad inventory, the more prices are bound to rise.
Yep. And I think there's a couple other trends that we're constantly seeing in Amazon that's pushing the overall bids up. And one is, when I first started selling on Amazon in 2014, 2015 timeframe, like, their key goal was to just get a huge amount of products in their system. So they wanted to be the everything store, which they definitely are. And so the key focus was, let's get a ton of different products in here, and then let's showcase all those different products. As they've shifted in recent years, they're really featuring the quality over the quantity. And so it's driving the competition for some of these top spots to get ranked. And it's driving the competition for some of these top spots from an advertising perspective. Another piece is that they've added extra spots at the top of search results for advertising. So there's many cases where you have to scroll down quite a bit to actually get to the first organic ranking. Amazon is continually trying to add more placements, but like Matt said, they haven't been able to add enough placements to match demand. And one reason is that they're pretty much saturated with ads at this point. I don't think they can add many more ads on Amazon without hurting the customer experience.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so we're at this point now where there's more sellers on Amazon fighting for those top spots, and the top spots are very limited. And so overall, that drives up bids throughout the whole system.
Yeah, totally. On the demand side, I think a major component of it too is more established brands are moving to the platform. So if we look back a couple of years, a huge proportion of Amazon sellers were like white labelers and very small brands, small e-com sellers.
Sure.
And now there are major brands vying for the same real estate that have much larger advertising budgets. They can take a loss on their advertising. They can spend tens of thousands or more launching a product. They can vie for very high volume keywords with super aggressive bids and massive budgets, and that escalates prices to a large degree. Similarly, aggregators are buying up Amazon businesses at an insane pace. Like, it's never been faster. And they also have greater resources, investor funding, where they can invest heavily in advertising too. So I think more and more brands are willing to take a loss on their ads to help position brands on Amazon and improve their ranking, whereas traditionally sponsored ads was a way of adding profit to your, like direct profit to your business, where your ACoS is favorable to margin and every single ad sale is contributing to your bottom line directly.
Yep.
Just ignoring the indirect ranking benefits that PPC has.
Yep. I remember back in the good old days when I could start an auto campaign for my products and get like a 5 to 10% ACoS and, complain about how much margin that was eating. And now there's so many, like Matt was saying, instead of being able to get profit from your advertising sales, in many instances, now advertising is just becoming another requirement. Like, it's kind of another necessary fee that you need to pay for. And one of those key pieces is to help out with your organic ranking too. So Amazon will never say that advertising is tied to organic ranking, but what we've seen from multiple different instances, for instance, we have a client who gets their advertising. Amazon says you can't advertise for this product. We've had instances where this has happened, where advertising has stopped. Their products were ranked really high. Advertising stops. Now their products start dropping down in the rankings overall. Overall, from an advertising perspective, like, advertising is a great way. It gives Amazon flags to help drive up ranking, and it drives that sales volume search history, which also helps ranking and helps establish that quality of the product. And so there's some big ranking factors that tie in here, which drives up the bids for these top converting placements. This is some of the strategies that we implement for our ranking campaigns. Is we're going to bid higher and more aggressively for these top performing ad placements, which are going to convert better and then translate to Amazon saying, okay, this keyword is definitely relevant for this product. I'm going to increase the organic ranking as we go. So I think an organic ranking strategy is another piece that's driving up the bids, because it's driving up the competition for some of these best performing ad placements.
Yeah, you just mentioned placements too, and I think that's another component of the CPC rise. Is Amazon has given us tools to escalate cost per click as well. So bidding by placement, those placement multipliers you set for sponsored product campaigns, sponsored brand campaigns, they're great tools, very powerful.
Yep.
But note that you can't set negative percentages for underperforming placements.
Sure.
You can only set positive placements.
At least on sponsored products.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Yeah, good point. Yep. So really, you only can escalate your bids and drive up CPCs through placement adjustments.
Sure.
The default bid strategy at a campaign level for sponsored products too was dynamic bidding down only, where Amazon can reduce your bid in real time if it feels like a conversion is less likely. Now they've introduced, not in the last few years, they've introduced fixed bidding and dynamic bidding up and down.
Yep.
Dynamic bidding up and down being the most notable, because they can escalate your bid by up to 2x if they feel a conversion is more likely.
Yep.
So there's still that dynamic down component, but that always existed. Now there's this dynamic up component or fixed bids, which promotes higher CPCs as well.
Yep.
But at the same time, a lot of those features give us more control over non-CPC metrics like conversion rate, right?
Yep. And there's been a number of new features too that allow us to easily spend more on the platform. So, whether you're looking at like the budget dashboard and it tells you the amount of impressions that you missed out on, or, different pieces like that too, all these new features make it a lot easier to increase spend. And you don't see as many new features tuned to decrease spend or make sure that you're getting a good return on your advertising overall.
Yeah, exactly.
So Amazon is tuning a lot of these features to make sure that it is easier to spend more on the platform, which inherently also drives up bids as we go. Yeah. Another piece that ties into this too, for instance, sponsored display is kind of a fun little case study. So it's increased 55% from 60 cents to 93 cents. Earlier in 2020, if you go back and look at some of our posts and listen to what we're talking about, any new features that are launched on Amazon, they tend to be underutilized at the start. This is why we're so focused on getting incorporated into these new features really quickly, because when you do that, a lot of software providers take quite a while to get incorporated in. People are slower to test and implement, and so competition tends to be a lot lower for some of these new ad types. So for instance, when sponsored display just launched, like product targeting, we saw a lot lower bids, and performance compared to the cost per click looked great. And then over time, more and more people have adopted sponsored display, and we've seen that increase go up significantly more than sponsored products or sponsored brands. And really, it's because it started lower than it should have, just because people weren't utilizing as much as they should have. So it just kind of goes and ties into, what we're always saying. If you can and you have the resources to do it, jump into some of these new features quickly, because you're going to get a big advantage from the start just when there's lower competition.
Yeah. I think that's one of the key takeaways that I really want to emphasize in this podcast episode. Like, it's not all doom and gloom. Yes, cost per click is rising. It's rising quite quickly if you look at year over year and looking at that compound.
Sure.
But there are ways to still run your ads in a profitable manner, ways of leveraging advertising, to boost your bottom line. Like, that's ultimately what it needs to do and what it does do still.
Sure.
So there are ways to kind of circumvent or mitigate the rise in CPC and its effect on your efficiency or your results. So adopting new features early is one of those tactics that you can utilize. Agencies, individual sellers are typically slow to adopt these new features. You have a price advantage when it's brand new. So when a new ad type rolls out, test it out, give it some time. Chances are you'll have a cost per click or a price advantage since you're one of the few using it. And then talking about like bidding by placements and some of the bid strategies, these controls that have helped to escalate CPC, they've also helped to improve conversion rate. So I think that's one of the really interesting things to bring into that cost per click graph that you posted about on social a few days ago or a few weeks ago, whatever it was.
Sure.
If we look at cost or at conversion rate, if we trend that over the same period as CPC, it rises pretty proportionately with those CPC, that lift in CPC. So even though cost per click is increased by, what was it, 50% or?
Yeah, it's about 30% overall.
30%, sure. Yeah. So even though it's increased by 30%, ACoS has been pretty stable for us, aggregate ACoS across our client mix, because we've incorporated all of these features into our management stack. So like bidding by placement, for example, we can find keywords that at top of search placements, the conversion rate benefit outpaces the cost per click premium.
Sure.
And net a better ACoS. Even though we're escalating bids, we're netting a better ACoS, better efficiency, because we're improving conversion rate proportionately more.
Yep. So right now, if you took this chart, so we've got cost per click rising as we go. If you look at conversion rates, so kind of the effectiveness per click that you're getting from the advertising, we're also seeing that rise overall. And the key reason why we're seeing that is we're continually targeting more and more high converting ad types. And really at the end of the day, what we're looking at is from a cost basis, and I look at a cost and a performance basis, those two pieces, which one is going to perform the best? And I'm going to set my bid based off of the expected performance from it. And so one of the drivers from the cost per click perspective going up too is that we are inherently targeting more expensive ad types. But the reason that we're doing that is because from a cost basis, they are performing a lot better. So in Matt's example for sponsored products top of search, it tends to convert at twice the rate of other sponsored products ads. And so if it was appropriately priced, if the market was totally efficient on our cost per click, top of search ads would cost twice as much on a cost per click basis as rest of search or product page. But what we continually see, this is one of these, I won't even call it a new feature at this point because it's been out for quite a while, but it's still underutilized for top of search. Typically cost per click is not 2 times the other ad placements, but conversion rate is. And so we're actually getting a better ACoS with top of search because that 2 out of 10 clicks converts versus 1 out of 10 clicks converts for the other ads. But cost per click isn't as high compared to that conversion rate boost. And so we're constantly looking for what are these hidden niches or different areas or placements or ad types that based on their performance are underpriced, and then we allocate more budget to those pieces. And up to this point, some of these higher cost placements, they're currently underpriced because they perform so well. And so we've driven more and more of our spend there, which inherently is going to increase our cost per click. But if you look at ACoS, it's been nice and flat at what our targets are because we're seeing that conversion rate boost.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are a lot of features that help navigate the CPC rise. Another thing that I definitely suggest to is structure your campaigns effectively. So parse out your campaigns based on goal KPIs, objectives, where you have your low funnel, long tail campaigns, your efficiency campaigns, where you're targeting, like a sustained favorable ACoS. And then anytime that you're looking to invest in ranking strategies, launch strategies,
Sure.
really growth oriented strategies, separate those into an independent campaign series where you can control budget and you have the visibility into how that's performing, how much you want to invest in growth ranking, those beneficial strategies that tend to be more costly.
Sure.
Like your campaign structure has a huge impact on how well you can control performance. So map out your campaigns well. Don't automate campaign creation. Don't just do it like a generic one campaign per product setup.
Yeah.
Think strategically and have a strategic campaign structure.
Yeah. And Matt's got a great point there where if we look at, say, ranking strategies, so we're going to bid more aggressively for those too. And our key goal is not a specific ROAS or ACoS that will have ceilings, and we'll definitely be looking at that. But our key goal is to drive up your organic ranking from being aggressive on some of these high performing placements. And those organic rankings are going to be where you're going to make the majority of your profits. Tying it back to another reason why I think that cost per click is rising overall and competition is going up is Amazon is continuing to also crack down on other ways to manipulate rankings. And so definitely limiting the options that are available to different sellers. So in the good old days, I could give away products for free. And somebody could leave me a review for my products. Amazon stopped that. Now there's been another clarification on using outside promotions and coupons and other things like that. The options are getting to be a lot smaller to generate those initial sales and those initial reviews and establish that ranking overall. And so advertising is becoming a bigger piece of that. And again, to do that, now you have to compete for the top performing placements, the top performing ad types. And there's a lot of overlap for a lot of people who are competing for these, which inherently drives up the cost per click overall. It pushes more people to advertising because we just have more and more limited options to really achieve that ranking and those reviews to establish that long-term performance. Yeah. So overall, we've got a lot of different pieces that are pushing cost per click up. I guess, Matt, what's your perspective on where this goes? Do you continue to see cost per click go up, or what are your thoughts there?
I do, yeah. I think it'll grow at a pretty similar trajectory to what it has historically. Brands are still flowing into Amazon. there continues to be greater competition. Aggregators are snapping up more and more Amazon businesses, and they have those larger budgets. I think more large businesses will continue to come to Amazon, and Amazon can't increase that ad inventory without impacting the customer shopping experience negatively.
Sure.
So I think just that fundamental will drive CPC up. But at the same time, there are new opportunities, new features that can help you navigate that increase. Just being strategic with your spend and being an early adopter, leveraging every feature at your disposal can help set you up for success and mitigate that increase, I think.
Yep. Yeah. And I continue I'm kind of on the same page for you. I see cost per click definitely increasing as we go still. There's going to be more and more competition for those top spots. And whether it's these large brands that are really trying to establish themselves or keep establishing themselves, or a lot of aggregators in the space who are buying some of these top brands and they have a lot of funding available and are really top line focused right now. I feel like the competition is going to continue to drive the cost per click up. So as a seller on Amazon, I think the key piece is just know that you're probably going to have to shift your advertising strategy, where if you're still looking at advertising as a profit driver, it's probably not going to be as much of a profit driver as you go on that first purchase. And so some other ways to combat that is making sure that you have a really solid brand. If you can turn that new customer who came in through ads into a loyal customer that's continually purchasing from you, that increases your lifetime value that you have. And now advertising as a whole, if you take a look at the lifetime value of that customer, is now profitable again. So if you can build out a really solid brand, you have comparable products, you have products that people cross-purchase from quite a bit, or if you get repeat purchases because your products are consumable, these are all items that now make that ad profitable if you look at the entire lifetime value of your customer versus just that initial sale, which is typically what we see from an ACoS or ROAS perspective. So we're going to need to see more and more of that as we go, because these bigger brands that are coming in and really driving up the ad spend, they have those solid brands. They have that high LTV, which is why they can pay more long term. And so that's really the way that we have to look at it to compete with some of those big brands and make sure that we can sustain our advertising long term.
Yeah, that's a good point. And tying into the branding theme too is making every click count by investing in your listings too. So I think that's a component of that.
Yep.
But if CPC is rising, the way to offset it is potentially through price increases, which could make you less competitive, but by offsetting it with conversion rate increases. One of the key ways that you can influence conversion rates, we've covered it on the ad side, but organically overall, drive traffic to a good listing. When somebody clicks through, you want them to buy your product.
Yep.
Defend your listing well, build out a good listing, get people to convert when they click through, make the best use of that potentially higher CPC.
Yep. So overall, life is going to continue to get more and more competitive on the Amazon advertising platform. And Amazon in general. But just know that there's always going to be instances that we can take advantage of too. So these new features are actually great spots where we can find these underserved areas and get that solid return, drive those sales, and keep building your brand. If you can be some of the first to implement these changes and get in, and then also have a good, full functioning advertising strategy, you can really set yourselves apart as we keep seeing these new features come out, even as cost per click goes up.
Can I sneak a quick tip in before you close the podcast out?
I would love that.
Sounds good. Quick tip, be proactive with your ad spend too and your bidding strategies. So we're about to move into we're in the holiday season, and eventually we're going to move into this Christmas period where products are going to be delivered after the holidays, and a lot of agencies, a lot of sellers, advertisers are slow to adjust their bids moving into that period, or they don't adjust them. I'm on holiday, I'm not going to touch it. Be proactive, reduce your bids. Purchase intent is declining. You can throttle back budgets, you can throttle back bids, and save during periods when you can predict conversion rate trends, CPC trends, and that kind of thing too. So don't just look at trailing results. Mm-hmm. Think ahead, be proactive, and make management decisions in anticipation of very likely trends.
Yeah. And if you're using like full automation software, don't just rely on full automation software, because typically it's backwards looking, and will take multiple weeks to adjust. And in that period, especially 21st, 22nd of December through January 1st, conversion rates drop by like 50% overall. And so if you're backwards looking, you could be spending a ton of money throughout that whole period. So like Matt said, coming into that area, proactively cut back those bids. For any of these items that we see coming up, make sure you're proactively making those adjustments. It's going to save you a lot on a cost per click basis and overall spend basis for sure. Yeah, great tip. All right. Well, this has been another episode of the Ad Project Podcast. As always, we really appreciate you listening. Hope you got a lot of value out of this, and we will see you on the next episode.